Velkommen til en splitter ny episode av Jerngrep, og i studio er som vanlig
Stig-Gøran Nordahl
og Per Olav Ravlo. Og dagens episode heter Quireboys og Electric Boys, da og nå. Og det er slik at i fjor høst så besøkte Quireboys og Electric Boys Norge igjen for en felles konsert på John D, arrangert av våre venner i Rock'n'Roll Junkies og Live Wire Booking. Og vi tok jo oss en prat med vokalistene i begge bandene, og dere vil snart høre at mesteparten av dette intervjuet er med Spike. Og det er det noen naturlige årsaker til, for Conny Bloom måtte nok sove litt, men han kommer også etter hvert på plass der.
Ja, vi tenkte vi hadde en kjempeidé med å intervjue de to bandene her samtidig, for de har en del fellestrekk hva karriere angår, men nå ble det noe sånn at Conny var forsinket, så da blir det jo mye fokus på Spike og Quireboys først. Vi tenkte å høre litt om hvordan det er å spille sammen nå, og ikke minst hvordan turné og musikerlivet har forandret seg siden 80-tallet. Dette er to band som mange var interessert i da de ble lansert, og som vel hadde fortjent å hatt større suksess enn de har hatt.
Ja, det er jo både du og jeg enige om, og vi liker jo begge bandene, men vi har vel egentlig hver vår favoritt, så kanskje du kunne fortelle meg og lytterne egentlig hvorfor du er ekstra glad i Electric Boys.
Ja, det skal jo nevnes at jeg er veldig fan av Quireboys også, men jeg ramlet av lasset etter omtrent andre skiva, tror jeg, men Electric Boys er et band jeg alltid har fulgt. Jeg føler at de kom med noe nytt da de slapp sin debut Funk O Metal Carpet Ride i 1989. Selvfølgelig hitten All Lips and Hips, en fantastisk låt som de fleste sikkert kjenner til, og som også ble gitt ut i forkant av plata i andre sammenhenger, som ble reinnspilt for å bli gitt ut her. Og selvfølgelig låter som Psychedelic Ice. Dette er veldig fengende musikk, og måten de bruker litt uvante instrumenter på, og også ikke minst den funky biten, det bare treffer meg.
Og Lips and Hips, det går jo an å bruke ord som en liten minihit, for den ble spilt veldig, veldig mye også på MTV.
De fikk mye penger av plateselskapet for å spille inn den neste plata, Groovus Maximus, som kom i 1992, faktisk spilt inn i Abbey Road Studios, som vel blir nevnt i intervjuet. Men den ble ikke like populær som debutplata, og jeg liker den plata også veldig bra, men det var vel begynnelsen på en del tur.
De var jo heller ikke alene med å kombinere funk og hardrock eller metal. Det var jo en periode der hvor du hadde andre spennende band som blant annet Mindfunk. Du hadde White Trash, og også Dan Reed Network, som hadde litt mer poppa tilsnitt, og så hadde du også selvfølgelig Extreme, og så mange glemmer
ikke minst Extreme,
var veldig funk-basert.
Som blir tøff funk. Get the Funk Out er jo en stor klassiker. Men før Electric Boys ga seg, så ga de også ut Freewheeling i 1994, som også er en bra plate, hvor halvparten av bandet er byttet ut, og de spiller dessverre ikke noen låter fra den skiva live lenger. Men Electric Boys er jo et band som har turnert masse, altså de spiller på hver eneste lille avkrok overalt. Jeg har jo valgfartet til Drammen for å se dem, jeg har sett dem på Olsen på Bryn, jeg har sett dem på Danskebåten, jeg har sett dem på Sweden Rock Festival for da mange mennesker. Så de er bare glad i å spille, de.
Og det var vel også derfor at det passet så bra når de dro på, i hvert fall spilte i konsert med Quireboys, for de har jo spilt på mange av de samme stedene, og også er kjente for å spille, i hvert fall Quireboys også, på de fleste stedene som vil ha de.
Ja, de har jo spilt opp til flere ganger på for eksempel Olsen på Bryn i Oslo, hvor også da Electric Boys har vært gjengangere. Men det blir jo mye mer om Electric Boys i intervjuet, men Quireboys da, Per Olav?
Ja, det jo et band som jeg blir gjort kjent med ved å lese Kerrang, hvor du kunne bare egentlig følge litt med på de når de spilte noen konserter, og ikke minst de skulle slippe en independent-singel som het Mayfair, som var helt umulig å få tak i her i Oslo. Så det var veldig interessant å lese litt sånn dryppevis om de, og så tok de skikkelig av når de fikk en kontrakt med Sharon Osbourne som manager, og de fikk en kjempestor kontrakt med EMI, og da fikk sluppet den første plata si, A Bit of What You Fancy, og den kom jo da på andreplass på hitlistene i England i hvert fall, og de turnerte jo over hele verden. De spilte på de aller største scenene, blant annet. Jeg vet du var og så de på Monsters og Rock i Stockholm, jeg så de på Monsters og Rock ved Donington, og etter det så ga de ut en plate nummer 2, som het
Bitter, Sweet and Twisted.
Ja, og den var også, ble lansert med en kanonbra single, Tramps and Thieves, men på tross av dette så ble den plata ansett som litt svakere, og den solgte ikke så bra. Og etter hvert der så stoppet bandet litt opp, og så tok de seg en pause, litt sånn som Electric Boys, men de siste 10 årene så har de virkelig fått opp et momentum igjen, og du kan nesten være sikker på at det kommer en årlig Quireboys-skive, og jeg trodde ikke helt på at dette bandet her var oppe og gikk med kvalitet, helt til jeg ble overtalt, og jeg må si at disse platene som det er gitt ut nå på 2010 og utover, så det utrolig mye bra og variert musikk. Jeg må jo legge til at de hadde såpass bra push på seg at de mellom debutplata og den andre plata så fikk de pressa ut noe som het Recorded Live Around the World, som en ganske kjip og billig utgivelse med veldig dårlig lyd. Så det ikke noe jeg anbefaler at folk setter på, men heller noen av de liveskivene som har kommet som bonusmateriale på studioskiven som har kommet.
Og med den lille introduksjonen så setter vi over til vår samtale med Spike og Conny.
So Spike, you're back in Oslo. You've been here, well, quite a few times for the last years.
Yeah.
I guess you like it there, then.
I love it. It's very cheap to live here, isn't it?
I guess not.
20 quid a pint. Luckily we don't have to pay for it.
You just came from Trondheim. You did a gig with Electric Boys last night, and you're doing the same here in Oslo tonight. It's a fantastic bill with the two of you together.
Well, I've known Conny for years, so you know, and the guys. So it's a great pair, and you know, last night went down to Storm. It was packed, and we've done the cruises together in America. We've done quite a lot of shows together, actually. Yeah. You know, known them for a hell of a long time. A great band. Yeah.
Absolutely. You released your debut albums approximately at the same time, 89 and 90. When did your paths cross the first time?
The first time, oh God, it must have been, I would think when we played in Norway around 89, 90, around that time. And then obviously the second album that we done, we done our album with Bob Rock in Vancouver, and he also done an album with Bob Rock as well. And I don't think we met in Vancouver, but we're always bumping into each other, and it's always we always have a great time. And then of course when he was in the Hanoi Rocks, so we played a lot of shows with them when he was in the Hanoi Rocks as well, with Andy McCoy.
Yeah.
It was great. He's the funniest guy ever. I love him. Yeah.
You're very busy at the time, and you've been for years. Could you take us through a typical day for you when you're out on the road?
Well, today we got up we went to bed at about 5. We got up at about 9, got a plane at 10 o'clock, got here at 12. Couldn't check in to the hotel till 3, but luckily somebody gave me room. Thank you very much. And then we come to sound check, go back to bed for a bit, have a few drinks, back on stage. Same thing every day.
You've been touring.
It's not all glamour.
No, it's not. What do you think is the biggest difference from touring now in 2019 and when you started in England back in the late 80s?
When we first started, people forget that I started the band in like 1984, around that time. And we had, 5-6 years, we had a yellow Bedford van where we all slept on the equipment, played any shithole in England. Plus we were called the Quireboys at the time, not the Quireboys. That's where we got the Q from. And so we were playing all the university. We played with a lot of punk bands, played with Johnny Thunders, played with Temple Tudor, played with all the punk bands in London. And then we created a following through that at the Marquee Club as well. And then obviously, being called the Quireboys, we never thought we were actually going to do anything. It was just fun, you know. And then all of a sudden started getting really serious. And then we got banned from every university in England for being called the Quireboys.
Yeah.
Are you scared of your sexuality? People would actually protest the gigs. It was unbelievable. So we couldn't play. And then obviously when Sharon Osbourne came along, she went, well, you're never going to be on top of the pops called the Quireboys. You're going to have to change your name. So we just changed it around. Originally, I wanted to call it the Quireboys, spelled C-H-O.
Yeah.
And then me and Guy were working on a building site in London. When I lived with Guy Bailey for 2 years before I even knew that he could play the guitar or that I could play the guitar.
Yeah.
So that's what we done was we were working together. Then my dad came down to visit, and he brought my guitar.
Oh.
And I started playing. And the guy went, I didn't know you could play the guitar. And, I play ragtime guitar and classical and everything. And then he started playing Chuck Berry. And I think we wrote. I'll tell you what we wrote. We wrote, How Do You Feel, 7 o'clock, and I Don't Love You Anymore, were our first 3 songs.
Wow. You were up and running quite quick then.
Yeah.
Do you keep in contact with Guy Bailey?
I speak to all the band, probably more than my band, and I see my band every day. I spoke to Rudy Richmond yesterday. He called me from Canada. I spoke to Nigel in Los Angeles the other day. And I speak to Guy Bailey all the time. And we're all still very good friends. Guy just didn't want to tour anymore. No. You got to remember, we toured for all that time, and it was such hard work. It was like the apprenticeship. Yeah. A lot of bands don't get that these days, unfortunately, because there isn't enough places to play or venues like what there used to be in England. You know, you used to be able to, say, up until the 80s, you used to, like us, we'd have a Bedford van, you get paid, like, you're lucky if you got paid 20 quid a gig. You know, you were living off your family and friends turning up and giving you, girlfriends, giving you food and, you know, and just playing anywhere you could. And that was our apprenticeship, playing every night, you know, just anywhere we could for about 5 to 6 years. So when we actually got the record deal, people forget that we'd been touring non-stop, and then all of a sudden we were on massive tours, touring non-stop, and it was just getting a massive grind, you know. And then we were just like, after coming up with the second album, it was just non-stop, you know, going in the studio, touring, everything, and people forget we had nowhere to live. I didn't have an apartment because I lived in hotels for years, you know, and it's a real strange thing to and then everybody just thought, you know, I had my kid at the time, and everybody thinks that we split up, and we didn't. We just let's have a break for a while. Yeah. You know, we didn't get dropped. Everybody says, we didn't get dropped by EMI. We were like, we want to have a break because we're going to die.
You played everywhere. I was, just refreshing before talking to you, and you played. I remember reading in Kerrang and reading about Mayfair. Wasn't that your debut single? Or yes. So I was trying to get it here in Norway, couldn't get it. Yeah. So I followed in Kerrang with all the concert dates.
Originally, we got signed to a company called Survival, and in them days, companies like EMI had subsidiaries of these little labels, and that single should have been in the top 20. But they didn't believe that we could do that.
It had a massive
because we were big all over the country. Well, in them days, the charts used to be, if you sold like 1,000 copies in London, you wouldn't get in the charts. You had to sell like 10 in London, 10 in Manchester, 10 in Aberdeen, 10 in, and then that's how it used to work.
Yeah.
You know, and they had to be from different chart shops, and that's how we actually ended up. But EMI just totally messed it up. And then one day I got a thing through the post, and it said, "We have picked up the option on your deal for EMI for £1."
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how they used to work in them days. Hence, but then but then we met every top manager was following us.
How did you end up with Sharon Osbourne?
Because, well, we had Peter Mensch, we had every manager coming to every show, and but they were all American managers, and it was like, and a lot of all them managers had about 10 to 15 bands on the roster, and Sharon only had Aussie, and so we thought, and she was English. We got on with her. She's very, very funny, and we knew that everybody was scared of her at EMI, which they were, and then she went in, renegotiated the deal, and got a fortune, or how it should have been.
Your debut album actually charted at number 2 in the UK. I think that must have been big for you.
Phil Collins, I can't bear him. He kept us off number 1. And I did a show with him, and I said to him, "You bastard, you've kept us off number 1. Plus, I think we had 7 top 40 singles as well,
It's 30 years since we recorded. It was released in January 1990. You're doing an anniversary show later in England. Would you bring on some special guests? Is Guy going to be there?
I think the guys all want to come, so I think Nigel's flying. I don't know yet. I mean, I spoke to Rudy in Toronto the other day. I spoke to Nigel in LA. Nigel's hoping to if he's out of rehab in time, he's coming out. But then he'll just start drinking when he sees me again. So.
You've had a huge amount of members in the band throughout the years.
Well,
has that been a problem for you?
It wasn't. It was mainly drummers. We went through so many drummers, but it was like
Spinal Tap?
More than Spinal Tap. I think that, well, I counted them up one day from the time that we started till now. I counted 28, 5 of which are dead, 4 have ended up in mental hospitals, and but it was different when we did the first album. We knew that our drummer wasn't good enough, and we had a guy called Ian Wallace who played with Bob Dylan. He was actually Don Henley's drummer from the Eagles, right. So that's how good he was. Yeah. So it was like when you played, it was like playing pool with somebody, somebody who's better than you. You play better, yeah. And he just took the band to a different level, and all that was recorded live in the studio. Actually, Jim Cregan done a really good thing when we were doing that record, because I remember doing 7 o'clock and it wasn't happening, and then all of a sudden we were all in playing live, and all of a sudden like 5 beautiful supermodels walked in the
inspiration
into the control room, and we were like, what the hell's going on here, and then that one take, once they walked in, that was the take that we kept, and it's the vocal that I'd done at the time as well. And then we all ended up going out with them.
While we're on the subject of inspiration, you've been writing songs for so many years now. What inspires you?
Well, just everyday life. I mean, you know what? When we done Amazing Disgrace, it was really hard, because I was thinking, have I done this before? Have I done that before? I haven't got that great technique like Noel Gallagher, where he's able to rip off a song and make it his own. I've never been able to do that. I always try to keep it simple, but it obviously, I mean, Guy did say to me, he says, please don't mention God and anything and religion. And I was like, do I mention religion? He was like, every album there's something on about. And I was like, do I? And he was like, oh, yeah. And, so I stayed away from that on this. But that was, I mean, that album took 12 days.
Wow.
And we went in with nothing.
Impressive.
I was held up in Rockfield Studios for 10 days, didn't have one drink, and we all buckled down and wrote and recorded that album in 10 days.
Whoa.
Basically. The first day I got there, I was ill, so I couldn't, and we couldn't really record, and I couldn't write. So while I was writing, they were putting down rhythm tracks and things like that, and then when we got them all, we went in and played them live. But I'd been to Rockfield before. It's a great studio. It's where Queen,
right?
yeah, Monmouth, and you know, where Queen done Bohemian Rhapsody and Led Zeppelin, yeah, everybody. So it was. But I'd worked there before when I'd done my solo album with Frankie Miller. I mixed me Frankie Miller album there.
Mentioning Frankie Miller, he's got to be one of your biggest influences.
Of course, you know, it was an honour to do. I mean, what happened was I got his wife started coming to the shows and bringing Frankie, because on my first solo album I'd done Be Good to Yourself and When I'm Away From You by Frankie Miller, and she heard them and she loved them, and then she started coming to the Quireboys shows every time we were in London, and she said, listen, she says, I've got, because in Frankie's apartment in Maida Vale, he had his own studio, like it was like this like
Small one.
Yeah, like a cordoned off in the living room. And he had like one of them old 8-track things. And so she sent me about 350 songs.
Wow.
From the 70s till he had his accident. And some were finished, some were just some were finished songs, some were like just a line of a song, you know. And and then I said, would you mind? Cause some of them just a chorus, and then so I would say, oh, would you mind if I added a verse to this? And so I'd check with the lyrics and do it like that. But it took me a long time to do that, because everything. What I did was I put everything to a click, and then I sent it off to Simon Kirk, who was in New York, and then he put the drums down. Right. And then I sent them drums to Andy Fraser in Los Angeles, then he'd put the bass down. And then that's how I was doing it, you know, just with modern technology. But then what I'd done was, when I went to Rockfield, I took everything and I put it all onto the proper old tape.
Yeah, oh, you did?
That's what I'd done, to give it that warm feeling. So it sounds, I know that people say, you know, digital, I mean, the modern is brilliant and you can get that, but to me, you can't get the warmth, I don't think, as off the tape, you know. And I sang everything onto the tape and used the old mics and everything like that, you know.
Beautiful way to do it.
Yeah, that was my idea.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
We'll got it. Yeah. But how is he doing today, Frankie Miller?
He seems to be fine. I spoke to Annette, his wife, the other week, and they're fine, yeah. Still in Maida Vale, he's getting on, you know. It's a shame. I mean, he can only say a few words, but he knows what's going on and he can communicate. And
he's a legend.
Of course he is. He's, you know, the greatest. I mean, even Rod Stewart said he's the greatest white singer he's ever heard.
I read an interview with you back in the 90s and talking about your influences. So I picked up Frankie Miller because I read this interview about you, from you. And it's like my mom's got the anthology, the Chrysalis album, my sister, loads of friends. So thank you for, promoting him, because I have never heard about him. But, you know.
Well, I mean, everybody always thought that that I loved, you know, like the Faces and stuff. And to tell you the truth, I'd never owned a Faces album. And I wasn't actually the singer when we started the Quireboys. I was going to play the guitar.
Wow.
And then I broke all the strings on the guitar when we were rehearsing. And Guy goes, give it a shot at singing. And then that's how it started. And I became the singer. And in my head, I sound like Mick Jagger, but it comes out a completely different way.
Amazing Disgrace is your new album.
Yeah.
We just mentioned your debut that was released 30 years ago. How would you compare your first and your last album? I mean, so many years in between.
Well, you know what we tried to do. Well, we did do it. What we done was we went to Rockfield and we recorded it how we done the first album. You know, it was a lot more stressful, obviously, on the last album because we didn't have. We went in with basically no material, whereas we'd been touring them same songs with the Quireboys for years. You know, but when we done the first album, 7 o'clock never ever had a chorus. A lot of them songs got changed, so when people heard the album, they were like, "Oh, you know, this is the fans that would follow the band, the hardcore fans," and it was like, it was quite strange. So when we went to America, we wrote a few more when we were in America on that, and then it's just, you know, it's like every album you just go in and think, how can we do it any better? Can we move it forward? Can we not sing the same words over and over, you know? But it's still basically 3 chords, you know.
With all these songs, how do you choose the set list?
Well, you know what we've been doing is, because it's late, like the other night, we played a lot of a bit of What You Fancy, because at the Forum we're going to play the whole album. And Davey's never played the whole album, our drummer, so we were sound checking them the other night, and some of them sounded so good in the sound check that we put them in the gig. So I think we played for nearly 2 hours last night. We're just, you know, so we're just playing as many songs as we could. We try to play at least a couple of songs off each album, and then obviously the ones that people like, Hey You and all that from the first album, you know. I'd hate to go to see a band and you didn't play you know, the songs that people want to come to hear, basically. So, but everybody seems to enjoy the new stuff, and it's doing. Right. It's been number 1 all over. That blues album that we did a blues album before this one, and that was number 1 all over the world. I mean, it was unbelievable. As far as you can gather, what is number 1 these days. You know, my manager keeps telling me I'm number 1 everywhere, and I said, so how am I still broke? Yeah.
I've seen you guys a lot of times, well, since your first album, for playing for huge audiences like Monsters of Rock in 1990, and also a lot of clubs. Yeah. And to me, you are the perfect club band. Yeah. What do you prefer?
I like all of them. You know, it's like even if now if we go somewhere and playing as well, even if there's 50, one of my favourite shows ever, I went to see Slade on their comeback tour in the 80s at Newcastle Mayfair, and there was literally about 50 people there, and it was one of the best concerts I ever went to. So it's like every time we play as though we're playing in front of 100,000 people. You know what I mean? No matter who's there, and that's the way we've always done it, because that was one of my favourite gigs. So I was looking at it like that, you know, when we play.
I saw you in Glasgow with David Lee Roth in 2004. Yeah. What do you recall from that gig?
I loved it. I used to go to his house a lot. Me and Dave used to hang out a lot in America, and I knew his manager very well. And I've been up to his house in Pasadena a few times, and he's a great guy, very hilarious. We were at the Forum, and Bon Jovi were playing, and Guns N' Roses walked in, like off their heads, as you know, because we all started around the first time Guns N' Roses came to England. We played the night before them, so we were all hanging out. They all nicked our girlfriends, which we didn't care. But I remember we were at the Forum and David Lee Roth came in, and he was in the bar and he went, "Spike," and I was like, "What?" He says, "Have you ever heard the Yankee Maiden Call?" And I went, "What? This is what the fuck are you talking about?" And he says, "You ever heard the Yankee Maiden Call?" And I went, "No." And he went, "Yo!" like that, and then like 4 girls, scantily clad, just came draping over him. He'd had this little thing set up, you know. Yeah. He's so funny, you know.
Next year it'll be 30 years since you played at Monsters Rock Castle Donington.
Yeah,
that must have been quite a day. What's your recollections of that specific day?
Well, it was a great day. That day, we'd been away playing a lot. And then it was so nice because we had all our families there for the first time, and all my nieces and nephews, and they had a creche set up for all the kids backstage, and you know, I remember meeting Liv Tyler when she was like, she was only about 13 then, and I remember there'd be like, and it was just a great day. And Thunder, it was so brilliant to have them on, and that made their career. But it was like that we'd been friends since Terraplane. Yeah. And we're still very good friends now, and they went down a storm that day. It was just when the festival was like that, and just 5 bands, you know, and it was like 90,000 people or something. It was such a great day. But now I went back. I took my son to one when we didn't play, and I just couldn't believe. Luckily, one of the promoters gave me a golf trolley to drive around it. I couldn't believe how big it was and how many different stages, you know. It's ridiculous.
It was quite a bold move because I was there right in front, and you started with a song that wasn't on the album. That's what I call bold, but it was great. I was like, "What is this?"
We never even recorded that song. Yeah, and I make up the words as I'm going along. Yeah, I love Newcastle United.
Like, I've never heard it before. It was great.
Well, the thing is, what we used to do was we'd do that, and that would be our sound check.
What is
for the sound guy.
What is it called? Do you remember?
I can't remember. Hold on, let me think.
It was like
anything to see. That's right. Yeah. It was called That's Right. That's right.
But please record a decent version.
We should do, yeah.
I'm waiting for it.
I'm doing a solo album in a few weeks, so I'll put it on that.
Oh, are you with only you?
Well, I'm gonna do it with just different friends of mine, and do it how I done the Frankie album basically, and have different friends of mine that
When is it coming out?
I don't know yet. We're doing I've got the deal and everything. It's just getting the time to go in and do it.
What's the sound going to be like? It's going to be like Quireboys, or are you going to do
be like proper Quireboys? What else can I do?
If you're going to sum up, just when you're thinking back to of your career, what's the high point? What's the best thing that happened to you?
Definitely. I can die a happy man after I played in my hometown in Newcastle with the Rolling Stones at St James's Park, the football stadium. So that was the greatest. I mean, we were on tour with the LA Guns in America, and my dad called me. This is way before mobile phones and all that. And I called home. He went, "Hey, the Rolling Stones are playing St James's Park." So I rang up Sharon and I said, "Sharon, the Stones are playing, can you get one?" And she said, "You're in the middle of an American tour." I said, "Well, I'm sure it would take a couple of days off." So we flew in, they put us on, thank God, and they flew us in from New York, then we stayed for a day and flew straight back out and went back on tour again. So it was like, there's actually a video of the whole thing, and we've been trying to find it off EMI. And it's us like flying there, and it's a video for There She Goes Again.
Ah, so it's a proper recording.
It's a proper video, but nobody can find it. It was never released. So, but it's got like we were playing football on the pitch before. When we got there, the dressing room was behind the stage. Yeah. And I says, "Would you please do me one favour? Can I have Newcastle United's dressing room?" And I was straight on the number 9 peg.
It is after all.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Do you follow Newcastle today?
Of course. Yeah.
What's your biggest regret about your career? Some move that you maybe would have undone?
Well, no. Honestly, I mean, I think we took the break when we did. I got to stay with my son until we took about 7 years off. And in that time, I lived in Los Angeles, Toronto, and London, and just spent some quality time with my son. And it was a major thing. And then in 2000, we got offered in 2000 of Sanctuary. They asked us to do basically, they got in touch with us and said, "Do you want to do an album?" And so I asked Guy Bailey, and he didn't want to do it. And Nigel and Guy what happened was I'd split up with my girlfriend, Nigel had split up with his wife, Griff had split up with his girlfriend, and we all had nowhere to live, so we went, yeah, let's do an album. And here he is, Conny Bloom. Hello. We're just talking about, when was the first time we met?
Oh dear, that was a long time ago. I can't remember.
What? It wasn't?
I can't remember, to be honest.
Rock?
On the road somewhere, I guess. Huh?
Was it in the Rainbow or something?
I can't remember.
You can't remember?
I can't remember what I had for dinner last night. I mean,
you know when we used to go to the Rainbow? But one night, you know, the big round table?
Right.
You know, Guy Griffin, I was sitting with Guy. It was the only place that Guy Griffin could have a drink because he was only 19, 20 at the time. And it was the only place he could drink. And I was sitting there with Slash, and you know how we wear the waistcoats and the white shirts? And Griff walked up to the table and Slash went, "We'll have 3 margaritas." He thought he was the waiter.
But we can try to remember, how did you end up doing these concerts together now?
well, we've talked about doing shows together for a long time to begin with, because we keep bumping into each other on the road and at festivals and stuff, and it always just seemed like a really good package. And some clever guy came up with the idea to put these 2 shows together. That dude over there.
we should have done more, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Scandinavia and Europe and what have you.
Absolutely.
We should do a proper tour.
Yeah.
But if we'd done Spain and Italy and everything, it'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not very often that bands get on together, is it?
Not even Batman.
No.
We were talking about bands splitting up mid-90s. You said the Quireboys was only having a break, but I think Electric Boys, you actually split.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was like a long break, very long, like 17 years or something. I don't know. No, we split up. Yeah.
Yeah, was that due to the music scene changing at the time?
No, people keep thinking or saying that it had to do with the grunge, but we were always like in our own little bubble. So
Same with us as well. Everybody always said that to us, and I was like, "What are you talking about? We've got a completely different audience." You know, it's like it was still.
maybe it's the truth, but I wasn't aware of it at the time anyway. I mean, for us, it was just a matter of, I just felt like I didn't have another good Electric Boys album in me.
You released Freewheeling before you had this break, and then you had a new lineup, 2 new members. I've seen you a lot the latest years, and you don't play anything from that album. Why? It's a great one.
It's because this is the original lineup, and they don't want to have anything to do with that. No, actually, maybe we could do something, but I don't know.
It's a bit like Guy Bailey. Could you imagine him wanting to play anything off the new Quireboys or stuff? You know what I mean? He'd be like...
We were just talking about touring. So what do you think are the biggest difference for you about the touring from, the late 80s and 90s and now?
Money.
Much more or less?
It's much more now. No, but as you know, the times have changed so much. So I mean, it's a different.
But in the old days, the record company used to give you tour support money, didn't they, as well? And you'd have like a whole crew. I mean, the amount of money we must have spent on tour was ridiculous.
And videos and everything.
It was ridiculous.
And videos and everything. I mean, I'm glad I can't remember how much the videos cost. Too, I would be crying myself to sleep.
We done 4 videos for 7 o'clock.
4
videos. The best one they just wouldn't have. It was the best. The best one was we had this huge party in LA, and there was like porn stars and strippers, and we were just all so drunk. And Sharon Osbourne was like, "You can't release that. It's never get played." And we were like, "It's brilliant."
Well, you're releasing your new albums through crowdfunding. Does that mean you're in charge for everything now? And also, that's why you see how much it costs to tour?
We thought we were in charge of everything, because this was done via Pledge Music. But as you know, probably shit happened with them, and that affected us and you guys and lots of other bands. So I mean, we weren't so in charge as we thought.
I got my signed copy in the mail. Maybe I was lucky.
Yeah. Fortunately for us, I think our fans got what they paid for, but they owe us money. So that's the problem. But a lot of bands are being owed money, but also their fans didn't get what they paid for. So that's even a bigger problem, I guess. But it sucks because it's like one of those. It was such a great thing that people could go directly to the band and fuck the music industry in between, and still you're getting fucked, you know.
I think it was a long haul scam.
Yeah,
I think there's some guy on the beach in the Bahamas pissing himself laughing at the minute because nobody's been paid out, and that was tens of thousands of pounds for the Quireboys, and then our manager ended up putting it out on our label, and then he put it out on his record label in the end, and he paid for everything. So it was like. But we had
the Bahamas as well.
That's where he is.
So what will you do for the next album when everyone is doing the Bahamas thing, screwing you?
I don't know yet. We're talking about it, so I don't know for me, but. I'm also doing solo stuff in Swedish. So I did that via Pledge Music before the Electric Boys, and that worked out fine. So I got another solo album coming out, but that's going to be via Mighty Music, a distribution company in Denmark, right. who worked on the Electric Boys album too. They're very good.
You seem to work very hard. I mean, Electric Boys, you're one of my all-time favorite bands, and I think you deserve so much more. But you never give up. You're still touring and touring. How do you feel about that?
It's very simple. I'm not feeling well if I'm not playing. It's as simple as that.
It's weird.
If I stay home, if I don't have any gigs, then like it's all this. What's the word in English? Angst. Or I don't feel good. It's like you gotta be productive.
If you're going to recommend, both of you guys, 3 albums for people who's never heard about the Electric Boys or the Quireboys, which 3 albums would you choose to represent you best?
Obviously the new one, Amazing Disgrace. A bit of what you fancy, the first one. And I always thought that this is rock and roll. The first one that we done when we got back together with Searching and all them like country songs and different. There's a reggae song. We always used to put a reggae song on and different things like that. And I thought that was a very underrated album. You know, they got completely slagged off, but it was like, and now it's hailed as a brilliant album. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really great album. Yeah. Okay, we've got your 3. Now we get some time to
think. Missed that. I'd love to hear you play reggae. See what that sounds like.
We used to do that all the time. Guy Bailey was when I first met him, he was in a band called Sharp Teeth, and he was the only white guy, and he was the best reggae bass player. And you know how hard it is to play reggae bass. Yeah. But it was like, it's cool. He's a brilliant bass player.
This is rock and roll?
There's a reggae song on that. There's a reggae song on a few of them. Yeah.
So I'll do a reggae Quireboys search.
Yes. I'm saying reggae, but have you heard the Rolling Stones do reggae? It's like that type of thing. Yeah.
It has to sound like that. I'd say like I'll follow his advice. The first one because it was the first one, and the last one, of course, because the last one is always the best. Yeah. That's what they pay me to say.
Yeah, what's it called?
No, I'm quite happy with the last one actually. Yeah. The Ghostwood Diaries, and then let's say the third one with the other members, just to piss the other guys off. Freewheeling.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
And you're going to do a proper Quireboys album now, by yourself, yeah?
Well, I was just saying to Conny, because I'm going to do a solo album as well. I hope he's going to play some guitar for us.
What's your biggest inspirations? We've talked a lot about Frankie Miller before you came, but what's your biggest influences that you come back to all the time?
Apart from me.
Apart from Spike.
Apart from Spike, it's a difficult one. Andy McCoy. Last time I was here in this room was with Andy, by the way. I think we played it. I know we played it with Hannah Rocks. That's the only time I've been.
I actually talked with you then, and I asked about an Electric Boys reunion, and you said, "No, we'll never." No, you said so. And it took 2 years, and then you were back.
It's never gonna happen. Famous last words. I'm thinking guitar players. There's one album I go back to, which is Jeff Beck and John Hammond live. Mm-hmm. I find myself if I'm like stuck in a rut and thinking, oh shit, everything's boring. I listen to that and then I remember, all right, that's why it's fun to play guitar. Yeah. I don't know, songwriting.
Jeff Beck's the guitarist. Yes. I remember speaking to Jimmy Page and everybody was saying he's the best. Mm. You know, they all love him the most.
So some Jeff Beck and Hammer.
Jeff Beck and beer.
Jeff Beck and beer.
Good for inspiration.
2 Bs, right? What about you, Spike?
Obviously, the Rolling Stones. If it hadn't been for the Rolling Stones, I wouldn't have done anything. You know, in my head, I am Mick Jagger, but what comes out is not Mick Jagger.
Looking forward to the stage moves tonight, then.
Yeah, I wish I could move like him now. I mean, my God, have you seen him? You know.
Okay, we'll let you guys go to your sound checks, and we're so much looking forward to the gig tonight. Thank you very much.
Det var det vi hadde å by på denne uken, og vi håper selvsagt at du vil høre på Jerngrep også neste uke. Og mens du venter, husk å sjekke ut vår Facebook-side. Takk for nå!